live. Very nice. Pod 98. Jalen Carter pod, right?
Jalen Carter.
Come
Brother,
on.
we're creeping up on a very, very special number.
I know. It's going to be a controversial pod. I'll save my controversy for that pod. But, the pod of the jersey that Pierre insulted me for getting, that I still stand by. Oh, D-line jersey is crazy. No, it's not. It's a 9-8.
Jersey is still crazy, brother.
No, it's not. I'm Parth. I'm here with Quell and Pierre. Philly Blitz Pod 98. Even though it's an Eagles pod, I just want to let y'all know, them Gator boys, they stay hot. They stay hot. They got that fire.
I don't think it's what the people came to see.
I think it's exactly what people came to see. I mean, I was thinking
let him.
I'm like,
let him.
dude, I've had nothing to add to any of these discussions about the draft except, hey, Quell, have you done any scouting on this random Gator player? So, like, at this point, I think there's enough of a niche audience. They're like, you know what? Them Gator boys stay hot. But how are y'all doing? Sorry, I interrupted you, Pierre.
No, I was gonna say, let him get his stuff off, Q. Man, he's experienced the Eagles Super Bowl and a Florida Gators championship in the same year.
He did the same, and this mixes me up. He did the same, but I insulted him, so I totally understand it, man. I totally understand it.
I'm about to say, I did not get this level of love when we got an Ohio State and the Eagles Super Bowl national championship, but I mean.
But Quell, let me ask you a question real quick, bro, because similar positions, right? How do you feel that this is most likely the peak of our sports watching lives?
Brother, I still don't think I've quite grasped exactly what the hell has just happened. It's pretty special, to say the least. I've waited for these teams to win championships in their own right for so many years. For them to do it together, it's like, I mean, I know I've been through a lot of hell and just this year in general and last year as a whole. So if I had to get anything out of this outside of my son, I'm what Denzel said, I'm leaving here with something.
Brother, like, I got the Gator chip, Super Bowl, and then I got engaged. You got the baby, Ohio State chip, and the Super Bowl. Pierre, you need a college team, bro. They're gonna win the baseball national title, bro. It's gonna happen.
Now the Phillies, they could what's the word? Make all this hurt go away and win a World Series, so then I'd be on track with y'all. But
dude, listen,
we'll save that for later.
No, absolutely. And to that point, the last couple of years, there's been so much hype around the Phillies. I like that we're a little negative about them. When it's all too positive, it makes me uneasy. It makes me uneasy. So
we got nothing to be confident or positive about with the basketball team in Philadelphia either.
Hey, no, you know what? No, I did want to mention successful surgery for Joel today. They announced it. It was the guy who did Kawhi's surgery. Now they always say surgery was successful. They always say that. It's the recovery.
What does an unsuccessful surgery look like?
They die.
Oh my gosh! What the hell just happened?
I mean, unsuccessful surgery.
Perished.
You mess it up. You cut something else.
It's more so like they probably have to get another surgery afterwards.
Right. Well, it depends, right? It's such a large spectrum of things. Like,
wait, Parth, your father's a surgeon. We can ask
that's what I'm saying. So it can be a lot of things. I mean, death is always on the table when you're doing surgery, just because you're opening someone up. Other times it can be just like Quell said, maybe you have to go in again and you didn't figure everything out, something alarming that you found. And the other thing could be like, you're a doctor in there and then you're new or something and you cut something else by accident and then you got to fix that, and you make some other problems for yourself. There's also the most unsuccessful surgery of all time. It was like Civil War era or something. I'm sure you guys have seen this picture or tweet on the internet at some point, but basically it had a 300% mortality rate because the guy needed an amputation. The doctor was like, I'm going to do the fastest amputation ever. So he cut the guy's leg off so fast that he cut the person who was holding the leg's fingers off. They both got infection. They both died. And then someone watching the surgery was so freaked out by all of it that they died as well. So 300% mortality rate. That's the most unsuccessful surgery of all time.
Bro went 0 for 4.
It's nuts, bro. It's nuts. How do you mess up that bad? But I mean, Eagles pod, we're 5 minutes in and we haven't even mentioned football. So I hope you all enjoyed learning about the Gator Boys and mortality, 300% mortality rates in surgery. Back to business. Back to business. It's pretty fitting though that this pod is number 98, the Jalen Carter pod. We get back to the trenches. Last pod a little too fun, a little too glitz and glam and fast people and all this type of stuff. Let's get to the ogres. All right, let's do this, man. How y'all
what I'm
feeling?
here for. That's what the people want to see. I just say the people ain't come here for that. That's what the people came here for.
Let's start with the edge guys. I know for sure, like you got about 3-4 guys who for sure kind of. Well, I'm not gonna say they aren't on the board, but it's like low possibility that the Eagles would draft them. That's Abdul Carter, Jalen Walker, Michael Williams, and Mike Green. I know for sure those 4 guys. I don't think they're in the realm of possibility for the Eagles. I think we can start with Donovan as
You
a
don't
rock.
think Jalen Walker's on their board?
I mean, I'm sure he's on there, but I don't think there's a chance he's gonna be there at 32.
I mean, we'll see, man. You know, I don't think with this draft there is anything that we can say for certain outside of there will be players selected.
So that's actually a good kind of point you made there, Pierre. That you said at 32, you don't think any of these guys are going to be there. We know that in next year's draft, we're going to have a ton of comp picks, right? That's what Howie's been talking about. All the flexibility that gives you. That flexibility also can apply to this year, right? You can look at it like you'll get picks next year, so you have a couple more picks to trade this year. It doesn't necessarily have to be we'll trade the picks once we get them, right? So do you guys envision any scenarios where the Eagles might be trading up in the draft? And if so, how far up do you think they would trade? And for who?
I think it all depends on the way the board falls. I mean, like you just said, like after maybe the first 2 picks, I mean the draft really starts at number 2, but after those 2 picks, it could go, any amount of different ways, right? And then I mean, I think in terms of like trading up like to where, I think the sweet spot from 32, Minnesota's at 24, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and they have 24, and then they don't pick again until like what 118, 119, right?
Something like that. I think.
Yeah.
I don't remember if that's the team that only has 4 picks.
Yeah, I think they are. Yeah, I think to me that's kind of the sweet spot in terms of a trade up for the Eagles. But it's just I think it's overall just depending on how the board falls.
Yeah.
So when you say trade up, do you mean in the first round or just in general?
First round. Let's just talk specifically first round right now because we're talking about these first round edge guys.
I mean, I don't want to say never because I mean, kind of like you guys just outlined, depending on how the board falls. We've seen over the past couple years circumstances happen where a player who probably shouldn't be there at this point in time starts to creep into a range where it becomes worth it to start making these phone calls. Mm-hmm. Now, I've been pretty stubborn, for lack of a better term, of the fact that I'm not sure if the Eagles are going to select or not on day one, but I feel really good about them trading up in day 2, the start of day 2 specifically, to catch this run of edges that'll happen. We'll touch on some of the players that'll probably be there in a second, but I'm not sure if, I mean, yeah, you just mentioned the whole comp pick thing, and I think they said the Eagles have 20 picks or so over the next 2 years or something like that. So, I mean, clearly they should have the arsenal at some point in time or another. But based on the weaponry we have at hand right now, I don't think they'd be in the business of trading up twice.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. The way I was looking at it, and this is just kind of how I'm feeling about the pick at 32. I don't know if they trade out, right? Because, well, like you mentioned, if there's a run on edges, 32 could very easily start that run as well, right? So you never know, and there's always the 5th-year conversation, things of that nature. But to me personally, I think they just trade up if it's a guy of Michael Williams level, something like that. If he's dropping, like you said, Quell, then maybe they move up and grab a guy like that. But if they stay in pat, I think. I mean, I've just been thinking about this. I think they just they go O line, D line, just whoever's best overall out of that. And I don't think they necessarily go either way. And we'll discuss the prospects today. But I just think in the past couple of years they've done such a good job of just taking the consensus like best guy, and just being like, hey, like he's a damn good player. We'll figure it out. I think there's enough holes on both sides where you could potentially justify that. But
And I mean, I guess since we sitting here and we getting ready to get into the business of the edge conversation, just kind of like I outlined a second ago, where we kind of don't know. Like I feel like there is kind of like the Avengers movie where dude looked into the future and they said, "How many times do we win this?" And he said, "One." And it is like there's so many different outcomes where if only this move happened, it changed so many different. If Shadura gets drafted at 2, it changes so many different things. If Ted McMillan goes at 4 or 5, it changes so many different things that will happen because of one specific move. Just throwing out different examples to say the least.
mm-hmm.
And with all that happening, with all the talent, I mean, as Pierre said on the last part, the Eagles have seemingly done their due diligence at cornerback, which led us to that conversation there. But with all, it seems like similar to a situation the last year or a few years ago with the whole Nolan thing, where with all the good players that probably have to go, and then you start naming, like Pierre said, Abdul Carter, Mike Green. If you choose to count Jalen Walker and Jahad Campbell as pass rushers, as some people may do, those are 4 players already that are pass rushers that get their name called early, which leaves in a situation where you could get to 32, and a guy like Michael Williams, Donovan Ezraku, James Pierce, Shamar Stewart, if you want to put him in that conversation, all of those could possibly be on the board at that point in time. Where is it even worth moving up, kind of thing?
Yeah, so let's get into it. I think we can start with Donovan Ezraku, a pass rusher out of Boston College. I'll just go over my notes here that I have on him. First thing I have written down, 2 words, pass rush, right? This dude has 16.5 sacks in 2024. I think he's one of the most polished technical pass rushers in the entire class. Kind of reminiscent, I think I heard this on PFF, kind of reminiscent of last year with Leatu Latu out of UCLA. Like you name it, whatever pass rush move you name, the dude's got it, right? Like I know he's 6'2", 248 pounds, so he's kind of undersized, but I think a lot of that kind of plays his advantage at times, in terms of his flexibility, his bend, his ability to kind of play low and use his size to his advantage, kind of like a low center of gravity type of things. Now he can get overwhelmed by like bigger, kind of longer tackles. So like pure power that kind of isn't his game, but more strength and finesse and technical ability. That's kind of what his thing is. Also the effort, his motor. Like when you watch him, he like never seems to be out of a play, right? Like he chases down the quarterback. He's just always around the ball. Um, I think, he's a guy that's an NFL ready pass rusher. Like you drop him in a system right now, he can go and get you 6, 7 sacks in his rookie year. Like again, he isn't going to win with like pure, just overwhelming power. But I think, the technique, the IQ, the motor, those are the selling points with him.
Yeah, man. Kind of like Pierre just outlined, actually did a really good job of describing the player.
Thanks,
counter
man.
rush after counter rush after
and
counter
actually,
rush.
he like somehow figured it out. Like he's not a bona fide draft guy, but he didn't do bad. This guy.
Now I'm about to say if I could have gave a description, it would have sounded a lot just like that, man. Just to kind of touch up on what he said, or kind of want to say give pushback, but just for conversation basis. I'm very interested. Like you said, he has an excellent counter rush. I mean, counter moves and just pass rush plan in general. I'm very intrigued to see exactly how he puts that those counter moves into play against NFL tackles, specifically when he has to go from speed to power. That is the one time where I begin to throw questions at him. And I mean, just kind of like you outlined, the power in general. Him as a run defender, I wouldn't call him a bad run defender, and to say the least, at all, he's looking to make a play on the football. He's a willing tackler. It's more so when he's in a position of having to set the edge. That's not his game type of player. So just kind of those things. But I mean, what can you say? A guy that when you put him in one of these, specifically a pass rusher on this defense, it's hard not to see him being effective early in his career. Now, just in general, the size, I would love to see. I think that's a reason why I'm specifically having a conversation, or even in my mock when I had him go to the Eagles at 32. The size is the conversation for me with him. And I said this on an episode of Boomer Bust. I find it hilarious where that it seems like this year, that's where a lot of my draft crushes seem to come from at the edge position. You talk about guys like Mike Green, you talk about guys like Donovan Ezaraku, or even a little later on, a guy in David Walker from Central Arkansas, where these guys, they have elite pass rush plans. They are NFL caliber pass rush players. It's just they don't necessarily have the size to translate to the next level. And you guys know how I feel about the whole trade over tapes, tape over traits conversation, things of that nature. Those players are a testament or are going to be a testament of that conversation at the next level.
So I have a question when it comes to all of that, right? So Nolan obviously is a extremely tough, physical, he bodies dudes, right? But he's not a big guy. He's not 6'5", 6'6", just like your prototypical big edge. Do you think the Eagles would move towards something like that, having that on both sides? Because, for the last couple of years, you've had Hassan and Sweat, or Nolan and Sweat. And Nolan and Hassan, we remember, were identical clones in terms of body type. Now their play style couldn't be more different. But do you think they would sacrifice that size? I mean, it is something to have that size on the line. Now you have size at tackle, so maybe you can get away with that. But yeah, do you guys think they take two swings on undersized pass rushers like that?
I think, like you said, like in terms of them having size at tackle on the interior, I think that's why they're kind of more open to having I'm not gonna say smaller, but like miniature speed rusher kind of guys.
But unless they're able to set the edge, right? And Donovan, he struggles with run defense, right? You guys said he plays with effort, all those types of things, but it's only going to get harder at the next level, right? And we've seen when Hassan didn't tackle, teams would just run at him over and over and over again, right? And then it's just like, well, you found the weak point on our defensive line, and that's why Nolan is so unique, right? He has like this pass rush juice, and he's undersized, but I mean he makes guys scared in the run game on offense. So I don't know. It was just something I thought about because like you said, Quell, a lot of these guys are undersized. A lot of the guys that people are getting excited about, but then there's also the guys who have a lot of size. Your James Pierce Jr., your Michael Williams or Michael Williams. Like they have that prototypical defensive end size where, okay, we can depend on you for run support there, just baseline. But I don't know. Interesting conversation. What do you think?
I mean, it's at least how I view it. And of course, you don't draft for specific type of player arcs or things of that nature. Schemes continue to mold year by year. You probably won't. We joke about how we won't see the same version of teams on a yearly basis. You won't see the same version of a scheme on a yearly basis. At least you shouldn't, because these defensive coordinators and offensive coordinators are smart. You give them an entire off season to scheme against what you did well last year, and you try to trot out there doing the same thing, then it won't work, for lack of a better term. But even in just to saying all this, my whole point was I feel like the Eagles have not just one, but two holes to fill at the edge position. I mean, yeah, they brought in Uche and I'm blanking on his name, Azeez Ojulari. There you go.
Yeah.
They brought in Uche and Ojulari, but they both were brought in on 1-year deals. With the team, we've made 1-year deals famous at this point.
Devin White, accountability group chat, baby. That's the perfect example, dude. Like, we were so excited in the offseason.
Not even just that, where that's a great example, though, where that's the negative way to look at it. But even in a positive way of the Mekhi Becton, where, I mean, we wanted him back so bad. He came on a 1-year deal, but he kind of priced himself out for how he performed. So it could go either way with the two players. The team kind of needs some consistency at the position, and losing both Josh Sweat and Brandon Graham is the problem for me. So I what Brandon Graham meant, and of course they were able to live, for lack of a better term, with the three pass rusher rotation down the stretch of the season. But Brandon Graham, through his tenure there, not just his tenure, but this year specifically, how he was utilized, how Vic was able to get the most out of him, how he told him basically, you just ain't no retirement tour. You about to come out, you about to play a lot of downs. We're gonna utilize you to the best of your abilities, and he did. I think they also need that kind of player in the building, a player who he is an edge rusher, he's a pass rusher, but for lack of a better term, he offers some juice and run support. And that, don't get me wrong, Nolan does. But I mean, that size conversation does become a factor at some point, I believe.
How big was BG?
I think he's 6'2", 255.
That's what I thought. Yeah, I didn't think he was super tall, but I just know he's husky.
Yeah.
269. Oh my God.
Whoa.
6'2", 270. Holy shit, dude.
Man,
That's my height, 270. Oh my God, dude. That's nuts. Shout out BG, man. Oh my God. Husky bull, dude. Oh my. That's nuts. Yeah. That's that size, right? And so Donovan is built a little bit more in the I mean, even Nolan is bigger, but yeah, he's not. I mean, 6'2", 245, 247. That's not the same. And I mean, longtime Eagles fans remember. I mean, Brandon Graham used to pop inside all the time. You know, especially in some of the other schemes, he would just be a defensive tackle regularly, especially with Schwartz. So interesting. All right. So, go ahead. Give us some background on you were talking about at the beginning, Pierre. You know, the three edge rushers you said or four edge rushers we're probably not going to get. And then the other three, why don't you give those? Quell, give us an overview, because then I got a question about all that.
Yeah. So next guy on my list, Landon Jackson. Now I know he hasn't really got out of Arkansas. He hasn't really gotten, I'll say, the notoriety I think that he should have gotten. But this is a dude, combine monster, right? 6'6", 270 pounds, 40.5 inch vertical, 4'6", 40, like measurables out of this world, like completely different conversation from the one that we just had, right? This is another guy who wins with like linear power, one of those like I like to talk about, move out my way kind of pass rushers. I think because of his size, that kind of limits his sort of leverage and flexibility. He isn't going to win with an elite first step or just as like a straight speed rusher. But like, again, he wins with kind of more power. He's good as a run defender, I think, because he's able to kind of control blocks. That's where his size kind of comes into play as a positive for him. He also really disengages really well. I think he's kind of still clearly figuring it out in terms of like a pass rush plan, in terms of like moves. But this year I think he showed some ability to develop, some different counters. But it's kind of watching him. It's kind of like he's still trying to learn how to balance his physical traits or physical measurables with kind of technique and put all that together.
Definitely, man. Landon, I appreciated him in general. Just not just watching the tape with him, but his growth in general as a prospect. A guy who I believe he committed. He spent one season at LSU before he transferred over. And a guy who just continued to get better slowly year by year. The year in 2022, I believe he started 7 games. He showed flashes there. In 2023, he came in, and that's when he kind of like jumped on the tables to let the world know, hey, I'm here. And just watching him, I mean, kind of like you said a second ago, Pierre, completely different player than the player we were just talking about a second ago in Donovan Ezaraku. You want to talk about setting the edge, buddy. There's nothing coming this way when you talk about Landon, man. Like a guy who, I mean, I appreciate what he does in terms of him as a pass rusher. We talk about what Donovan offered in terms of his potential counters and his pass rush plan. Well, Landon, he's no Chab himself. He offers a hell of a pass rush plan. It's just the whole, like we talked about with translating speed to power, it's the opposite with him. With you got the power, not really the kind of guy that you trust to get around the edge, the bend kind of guys. But I mean, in terms of the conversation we just had a second ago about missing a potential Brandon Graham, I think he's one of the players that could really fit that bill right there.
I mean, I think for him, like he presents kind of a nice contrast in terms of like the size difference at 6'6", 270. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, when you look at the pass rushers that Fangio has had, like in his past, I mean, you've had what Von Miller, Jalen Phillips in Miami, Khalil Mack in Chicago. So has he necessarily had?
Leonard Floyd there too.
Yeah, has he necessarily worked with a bigger guy like this?
Floyd was
Give me
Floyd
one
isn't
second.
that.
I think I got one guy, man. I just got to confirm something.
Yeah, so Floyd is two. I had just looked it up. Yeah, Floyd was around like 240, 6'6", 240. So he was lighter. But that's similar
Hakeem
to
Hicks.
oh
Hmm.
wow, what a name.
That was as soon as we just started describing and we thought about his time. That's actually the first thing that came to my mind. His time in Chicago, and a lot of Khalil Mack got a lot of the love, rightfully so. But buddy, what Akeem Hicks meant to that defense, and again, how he was able to utilize him all along the line of scrimmage meant a lot to that team.
Mhm.
All right, so I got about two more guys before I hand it off
Quick
to
question
you.
though.
Oh, okay.
For that guy, for him, what was his name again? Sorry, I just
Landon Jackson.
Landon Jackson. Yeah.
Come on, man. You supposed to be the SEC guy. I know you sat there and sent hate mail to him.
It means more. It just does. I don't know what to tell you. But do you think that's a guy that would go at 32, or is that a guy?
No, he's more. I think he's more second round, like
right. I was about
kind
to
of
ask.
trade back. Yeah.
Oh, even a trade back, not a trade up. If there's a run on
Either
edge?
way, that's you. Pierre, we're looking at it in a similar light where he sounds like he's willing to trade back from 32 to get into the run early on day two.
Mhm.
Whereas I'm willing to see what's the best player available. And then, of course, we talk about the 2 5th-round picks they have to offer. I mean, the 3 5th-round picks, I'm sorry. Where I think they got enough arsenal to offer what they had one of them fives and where they at two in the second round to get up and make a run there. But either way, they should be in position to get in the run that we're talking about.
Yeah. All right. So I got about two more guys before I hand it off to you to give us the James Pierce Jr. rundown. Q. So first, Oluwafemi Oladejo out of UCLA.
So
Yeah.
we gonna this what we gonna do. This what we gonna do. It sounds like this what the general public has done. I tried to make Olu the thing, but it sounds like people are rolling with Femi. It's Femi Oladejo.
But I know how to say it. Oluwafemi. That's how you say it.
I mean, yeah, but it ain't gonna get us no cool points. We go in the middle of a podcast and you're gonna be talking about in 2 days. Yeah, man, because we were at an hour and 46 minutes, and I'm gonna say if you would have said Femi instead of Oluwafemi, that would have saved us about 3 seconds.
Well, no, man. Femi Oladejo, 6'3", 259 pounds. This guy is extremely interesting. I remember he was the first guy I sent to Q when I started looking at edge rushers in this class. And he's like shot up draft boards. Like I remember when I was first looking at him, he was 5th round, 6th round projection. Now I've seen some people, which I don't think this is going to happen, but I've seen some people project him at 32 to the Eagles. I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't
personally,
think he's going that high. I think he might be my variation of the Jalix Hunt this year.
Yeah, that's a good comparison, Q, because he made the position switch prior to 2024. He moved from off-ball linebacker to edge defender, and the dude thrived. Right, he won UCLA's Kenny Clark Award for the most outstanding defensive lineman. Again, his first season as an edge rusher, so like that has to count for something. Now this is a dude, as I just said, he made a position switch from off-ball linebacker to edge rusher. He's still raw, right? I think he's still learning how to use his hands. He's developing his rush plans, kind of trying to figure out how to play the edge position full time. But the dude's flashes, brother, when he flashes, right? He's got a nice cross chop counter, just natural power that pops off of the screen. And you can kind of tell he used to play linebacker just because of his motor, and like when they ask him to drop, like the range, it's clearly still there, right? And he did a lot of everything at UCLA, like I just said, stack backer, He has reps where he's in a 2-point stance or 3-point stance. They use him a lot on blitzes, twists, loopers. They've schemed him up in a ton of different ways. And he also had over 300 special team snaps. Really explosive hands, good bursts off the line. He finishes really well as a tackler. Like I said, because of his pass as a linebacker, you can kind of tell he used to play off ball because the range that he possesses or displays, when they ask him to drop, it's really evident. Again, he isn't that polished. He kind of, when he's as a pass rusher, he kind of loses the leverage battle at times. He struggles to get off blocks. But I think all of those are kind of coachable, and again, they'll come with more experience as he continues to play on the edge. But this isn't just a guy who's kind of a traits and measurables kind of guy. Also, the big thing with him, kind of, he's a culture guy, right? Like, really good locker room guy.
Mm-hmm.
From everything that I've read up on him, his coaches, his teammates, they love his passion, they love his work ethic. I think specifically for the Eagles, when you look at Howie and how he talks about, the types of people, not just players, but the types of people that he wants in the locker room. And then you look at all the Georgia Bulldogs that they have, right? Like Nolan, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, N'Kobe, right? I think this is a guy that they could kind of feel comfortable bringing into their locker room or ecosystem, as they like to call it. And he settled in really well, like you just outlined, Q. The Jalix Hunt comparison, it's kind of evident. Again, I wouldn't be shocked if this is a Vic Fangio favorite. I think this is a guy you're kind of betting on
I
that
think
he'll be able to grow and develop in your system.
in terms of the
Sorry,
trait. Go
how
ahead,
big is
bro.
he again? What was his size?
6'3", 259.
6'3", 259. Okay.
In terms
Also,
of
sorry, one more thing, because you're about to get serious and give a good point. It was just funny how you slipped Jalen Carter in there in the.
When I said it, I was like, that might not be the best.
He's like the Georgia Bulldog.
The university that wears my keys, bro.
You saw the NCAA meme that they made. They were like, "There's going to be the open world at NCAA," and they were like, first occurrence if you're a Bulldog in NCAA," and he's just like wearing like it's like the avatar with the Bulldogs uniform on, just like stopped at with a cop. I was like, "Oh my god, bro!" Sorry, Quell. Go on, bro. You were giving
no, you good, brother. You good, brother. I think there were a couple interesting things just hearing. I mean, I I think Fangio would appreciate the traits that he brings. I think what made Jalen Hunt so special is necessarily what he offered in the background as the safety and how he could utilize him in coverage and the flashes he showed as a pass rusher. I don't think we're necessarily there in coverage yet with Femi. I think with Femi, it's a big ball of clay, or how I like to put it, an empty canvas. And he possesses all the athleticism in the world to be whatever he wants to be. I could see, like I told Pierre early when he first sent them to me, I was like, I can see why you love him. He's one of those get your ass out of my way pass rushers. Now, that can be a plus or a minus sometime. And he was like that at linebacker too. That's where he excelled. That he was more of a pressure linebacker in this off ball days, where I mean, sometimes when we had this conversation, I don't know if it was on pod or if it was just us talking ball off pod. But we had the same conversation about Walter Nolan, where I mean, you so damn good at what you do, you kind of put yourself out of position sometimes, and that's kind of the conversation with Femi. Now, a guy who he started at Cal, a Cal commit, started 11 games there in 2 seasons before transferring to UCLA. First season, they played him there at stack linebacker before, and he played his first 2 games of this season at stack linebacker before he made the move to the edge. I like to make the jokers because they needed to make room for the Carson Swearinger, but just in general, the future, how he was utilized at linebacker or how he was successful at linebacker was much more likely to be successful as a pass rusher. And I mean, again, like Pierre outlined, there are things about him that he has to get cleaned up. His hand usage. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily call him a hand fighter. Wouldn't necessarily say he's one of them guys that'll set the edge either. He's really one of those. I think he has to learn. I say this often about quarterbacks. but it's a saying that can fit for defensive linemen in general too. But he needs to learn how to play within the confinements of the scheme. Sometimes you're not asked, and we'll get into this specific conversation of what teams are asked or not asked in a second, because Pierre asked me something interesting the other day. But I feel like sometimes people get lost in the Hassan Reddick conversation, like you outlined, Parth. I'm a pass rusher. I just want to go get after the quarterback. And I mean, it's cool and all, especially when you can get the numbers to back it up. But when you're a raw pass rusher and that's your only idea, it'll take some cleaning up to do. So, I mean, kind of like you said, Pierre, it's getting too heavy for me, or some of the mocks where I seen him at 32, where it's like, all right, let's chill out now. I appreciate him. He made the my guy list. I appreciate him as a player, but it's reaching Trayvon Walker status now.
So is he late second, third round guy? Because I mean, that's where J-Lix went, right? And even J-Lix was kind of took early.
I think he's mid to late third to kind of early fourth. That's where I have him.
Around that same area. We took J-Lix in the third. It was early third, though, right?
Yeah. No, I think middle to late third.
Okay.
Early fourth, yeah. So last guy, and this probably is gonna launch us into a whole other conversation, but you want to do James Pierce Jr. first before we get into the Texas A&M?
Yes. We can talk James Pierce.
Yeah. You got the James Pierce rundown.
All right, give me 1 second. Let me pull them up, my stats and all that. But James Pierce in general is such an interesting conversation where, I mean, kind of like them guys I outlined earlier of so much production, all the production in the world, but you're not really the flashy guy. You don't really possess the length that they would want, as especially a guy that's going to be a pass rusher at the next level. Now, how he wins is going to be important. You can't, I mean, like I just said a second ago, we can't have that. We can have the jokes about the whole, get out my way conversation, things of that nature, but I do think he needs a continuous refined plan that's a pass rusher in order to be successful. I mean, he has juice, don't get me wrong. First step explosion out of this world. I can't see the Eagles falling in love with that kind of player. I mean, it's very reminiscent of the Nolan Smith pick, but we got Nolan Smith at home. And I just don't see, kind of like the same outline I laid a second ago with the conversation about the Landon Jackson. I think they're looking for a different archetype. I think they're looking for, if they're going to draft a pass rusher, it's going to be either a guy at a bigger frame or one of those long athletic guys who they may not have it figured out yet, but they possess a great future.
The conversation with him has been really interesting because it's like, it's kind of clear that the dude is talented. Like, the talent is there, but there are off the field things that,
you know me, man. I try not to dibble and dabble in those areas, but
yeah,
I mean,
it's interesting to me because, like, the main thing that I see or that I've seen is just that the dude has like serious anger issues. I don't know what else there is. Like, I mean, I get it, like that could be a problem, but like it seems like that's something that like you can kind of use to your advantage, right?
Bro said, get angry on the field.
You only need so many crash outs now.
Exactly. It's only so good on the field until he just spears someone because he's pissed off and then is ejected for 2 games. Like,
I managed kind of build a 1996 Miami defense. Swagger.
We don't have enough cocaine for that. I don't know what to tell you, man.
All right, let's get into the Texas A&M guys. I'll go first here with Nick Scorton. 6'4", 257 pounds. I saw that he just visited the Eagles facility, I think last night and then again this morning. I saw he posted a picture with Brandon Graham. I think he's an interesting case, right? He played heavier at 285 pounds in 2024 with Texas A&M, but he showed up to the combine, he was 257 pounds. So that's kind of like, well, I mean, it's kind of a good thing because you're showing that you can kind of drop weight.
You want to talk some ball?
wait. Let me get through my spiel, right? I think he's a kind of classic case study in scouting and the draft process, right? It kind of opens up a nice combo, like I alluded to a couple minutes ago, where it's like as a scout or as a front office in totality, when you're looking at a player, it's like, how do you kind of weigh how he was deployed in college or, in his previous system with, how he tests and, what you project the player to be in your system, right? Like, it's kind of like a puzzle, right? Like, what can this guy be in our system, not just what was he at Texas A&M? And specifically for these guys, because, like Quell alluded to, I texted him last night and I was like, kind of break down to me, what went on with the Texas A&M defensive guys, right? Because a common thing you hear when these guys are brought up is their usage or how they were deployed, like it kind of limited them. But just a little bit more on Scorton before I hand it off to UQ. Good displays of power as a pass rusher, really heavy hands, really forceful pass rusher. His hands are very violent. He legit moves offensive linemen and collapses the pocket with physicality. Really high energy, high motor, kind of a high floor. And then the intriguing thing with him, the dude is only going to be 20 years old on draft night, right? Like he can't legally buy a beer, but he's going to be drafted, right? So interesting. This is a guy, he kind of doesn't necessarily have a signature kind of trait, right? Like it's kind of all very good across the board, right? His first step, really good, not elite. Speed to power, really solid, not dominant, right? He's not going to win by being the fastest or the bendiest. I think his best trait, like I said, is kind of the power combined with his motor and his effort. He's been a really productive pass rusher, like I said, powerful. But I think he still does have a lot of room to grow. I think I heard Connor Rogers and Trevor Sikkema NFL Stock Exchange. They mentioned Jared Verse as a bit of a comp to him, and I think that makes a little bit of sense, just in terms of again the power, 10-inch hands, the high motor. So that's everything I got on Scorton.
I'm excited. I've been waiting for this. You ready to talk some ball?
Let's do it.
All right, so for the start, you mentioned how he played at a certain weight at A&M and he showed up at the combine at a certain weight. What I want you to do when we get off here, hell, me and you can go do it together if you want to. Let's go. Yeah, that was crazy. Let's go back to 2023 and let's cut on some of that Purdue tape. And I feel like the pass rusher that he wants to be, the pass rusher that he was at Purdue, a double-digit sack guy. I think he led the Big Ten in sacks in 2023. Had the most sacks for a Purdue team since Ryan Kerrigan was there. Where he offers the juice at the position. Now it gets into the whole conversation of like you was talking about team utilization and things of that nature. Now with A&M, I mean, you kind of see what goes on. And A&M isn't the only team that operates like this. We have similar conversations. The conversation is honestly why Michael Williams is in the boat that he's in this year, where teams like Georgia, teams like Alabama, well, Alabama early on, they're not like this anymore, but they don't necessarily they teach their pass rushers to play the run on the way to the passer. They don't necessarily say, "Hey, go be a pass rusher." Again, he's getting a whole lot of love in this squad, like you say, Parth, the Hassan Reddick conversation. But in the same breath of teaching them to basically play the run, sometimes you gotta put on a little weight and you adding on, you basically playing different roles. We have a conversation all the time about what Jordan Davis is asked to do in this system and why he isn't necessarily going to be the stat sheet stuffer and things of that nature. Though that's kind of what they ask for them guys. And that's what makes, and again, you guys know I say every year, I'm a tape over traits guy, tape over traits. But this is what make the traits over tapes conversations so unique, because you look at a guy and his teammate and Shamar Stewart, who also played at a higher weight than he came in at the combine and that he would have liked to play. and you see him basically lead the team in pressures with 33 and things that like basically live a life near the quarterback all the time. And the big thing with him is, well, I just need you to be able to finish. But then you have the conversation with yourself. I wonder what it's like if he actually cut that weight off. I mean, we actually let him loose as a pass rusher, which kind of like you said, it goes into the conversation of what these teams ask you to do and things of that nature. But that's just not how those teams specifically utilize their edge rushers. It and it's what makes them. I don't want to say it populates their draft stock, for lack of a better term. But I mean, we all love versatile players. We love guys that can play the run and the pass. But sometimes it's a good and a bad conversation where we sitting here and we talking about this for the A&M guys, but in the same breath we say that we'll talk about Michael Williams and we'll say, damn, I wish I had the opportunity to see him let him loose as a pass rusher this year. But I mean, I get it. You needed somebody in that role, not just you needed to get Jalen Walker on the field, but you needed somebody that you could rely on a down-to-down basis as your consistent run stopper. So,
what do you mean by populate? Sorry, I think I misunderstood.
Say that one more time.
Did you say populate or complicate?
I did say populate, but it was basically me saying it.
It just adds depth to the conversation around them. It just makes it more complex.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I was trying to. Okay. So, because when you say all that, my question would be: in our defense, you're also asked to play the run as well as the pass, right? It's not like we're a one-dimensional offense in that, or sorry, defense in that way. So, I guess the conversation then becomes: sure, they can shed the weight, right? And then you can put on that Purdue tape. And now, personally, I haven't watched it, so I don't know about that. But is he still going to be able to play the run at the same level if he sheds that weight, right? I guess that would be my question.
I think that
protection.
That question specifically is what I have on the front of Shamar Stewart.
Yeah.
Nick Gordon, from what I've seen from Nick, both during his time at Purdue and this year at A&M, I don't really think they needed to ask him to add on the weight for him to be the kind of guy they wanted him to be in terms of a run defender. That's what makes him and the visits to Philadelphia so unique. Because like you said, Parth, this is the kind of defense where they ask you to kind of stop the run on the way to the quarterback from times. I mean, they wouldn't have thought that when you watched the Super Bowl, but
well, that's why we're talking about BG, right? It's just like that's what he did, is he would make sure that, and that's what's so great about Nolan. That's why everybody in Philadelphia loves watching Nolan Smith. It's just like, please, dude, just blow up another run play. Please send another guard to the sideline where he's like, geez, my neck. Like, there's nothing that gets me more fired up, bro. So, no, yeah, it's interesting, Quell. So with Shamar Stewart, you think that the weight is a question? You don't know how well he would look if he loses a lot of weight. But with Nick Scorton,
not necessarily. I don't know how well he would look. I still trust, like, what he put on tape, I believe is more of a display of what he is as a pass rusher than as a run defender. And the conversation is the opposite with Nick. I think when Nick put on tape this year, it says more about what he truly is as a run defender than as a pass rusher.
Sorry, one more question. I mean, so if we're talking about Nick and you say he's 280, right?
He played at 280.
He played at 280. What did he weigh in at the combine again?
257.
257. Who was that? Who was like the last guy? I swear there was like a couple years ago where there was this guy who just like dropped a ton of weight. I mean, this is bad podcasting, but I would like to know what happened with him. Just as reference, because that's always interesting to me when a guy plays at such a high weight, but then he knows it's not sustainable. So then how much of that was coaching staff? How much of it is just like,
but no, I guess what makes this conversation interesting for me compared to a lot of guys during draft season, when you hear about weight fluctuating and things of that nature, is a lot of these guys fluctuate their weight in order to basically prepare for testing. That's why some of them, they don't run when they at the certain weights because they want to lift and things of that nature. It's all about what you put on tape and what the teams are questioning. Well,
especially a D-line, you're not strong guy, skinny and not get your bench press up or something.
Right. things of that nature. Compared to these guys specifically, I think they legitimately dropped the weight because they understood that what they were asked to do isn't necessarily who they are as, I don't want to say as players, because I mean they've shown they could do it. They say all the time, all you got to do is put it on tape one time. But I think it showed that, hey, if you want to know the true realm of who I am as a pass rusher and things of that nature, this is what I would rather play at, things of that nature, compared to the whole I want to run a 4-3.
All right, last point on Shamar Stewart before we move to D tackles, and I think we can probably do offensive tackle on the next part because we're almost at 50 minutes. But the Shamar Stewart conversation is puzzling to me because the dude is 6'5", 267. Well, he showed up at the combine, 267 pounds, ran a 4.59 40, everything like that. The athleticism, like you talked about, Q, the what he put on tape as far as like his ability in terms of the technical ability, it's all there. But how can a player this big, that strong, that athletic only have 4.5 sacks over 37 college games?
I mean, it's just like I
Like,
said a second ago, man. And I guess, God damn it, Pierre, you making me argue the other side. I want to be tape over traits, not traits over tape. But these kind of guys make these like, and I mean that's just a beautiful conversation in the scouting world where you get certain guys that come across your table and it's like you test every metric of what I believe as a scout, but I see a window for you being successful. And for him, I mean, people love to bring up the Daniil Hunter conversation about lack of production, but look at what he did at the next level and things of that nature. And I mean, for some people, it's real. For some people, I mean, hell, we need a baseline to start somewhere. I don't think he's one of those guys. I do think it's real with him, and it kind of dates back to, like I said, him leading the team with pressures and things. It's him basically being so close to making the play, but just never getting it done. And then you see him cut the weight, and it makes you wonder, well, damn, if you were this kind of athlete before you cut the weight, what kind of athlete would you be without this weight? Is that the split second difference between you getting to the quarterback and not getting to the quarterback? Like, it opens a whole different conversation of how you want to discuss the player.
it's interesting for sure. But let's move on to D tackle. Let's run through them really quickly before we get out of here. So two guys I think that I'm not gonna say they again aren't on the board, but more than likely won't be there at 32 when the Eagles are selecting. Mason Graham, he's probably going top 5, top 6, and Kenneth Grant, he'll probably be top 25. Next up is a guy I had going to the Eagles in my first mock draft of the offseason, Walter Nolan. This is a dude, I don't think this is a stretch to say, but he's been a draft riser throughout this entire process. I think he's probably risen the most out of any first round talent I've seen in this process. 6'3", about 290, 305 in that range. Really explosive and twitchy pass rusher. I think his athletic upside is like off the charts. Like that's the selling point with him. I think his best reps come when he's attacking and kind of has the ability to drive the offensive lineman back. The dude is a disruptor. That's his game, right? He's flat out a disruptor, chaos creator is what I like to call him. He thrives when he can be, aggressive, get vertical, and kind of force quarterbacks off of their path, or even in the run, which I know he kind of still needs to improve there, but forcing running backs off their path too. Like he's capable as a run stopper, but he does need some work there. I think in terms of like where he can improve, his pad level kind of limits him a little bit. Again, he's again, like I said, just a chaos creator, right? I think that's his game. High upside. Again, like I said, he's draft riser. That's been the biggest selling point with him, his upside, and what he can be, not necessarily now from day one, but probably in like 2 years, 3 years. But that's what I got on Walter Nolan.
Oh my goodness. No, Walter was probably him between he and Deion Walker. Those are the two players I watched at the defensive tackle position, and it was like, oh, I love you. Oh, I hate you. Oh, I need a beer. Oh my gosh, what the hell is going on? All right, I need a break. It talk about a roller coaster. They'll take you on the couple. And just with Walter, I mean, you talk about a guy who I believe he was a consensus consensus 5-star, to some the number one player in his class. When he arrived at Texas A&M, I mean, it's so hilarious. We start with Walter Nolan. We just had the Texas A&M conversation and how they asked their players to play and things of that nature. Walter soon realized that was not beneficial to how he wanted to play.
He got up out of there.
Yeah, he got out of there quickly, and he got the Ole Miss, and for lack of a better term, Ole Miss gave him the creativity and the freedom that he needed. I like to call it a beautiful chaos. How I wrote it down, how he plays the game is no structure whatsoever to what he does. But it's fun to watch him work on tape. But I mean, kind of like we said a second ago when we were having a prior conversation, my whole thing is sometimes there are things that he does, like his whole game is I'm better than you. Watch me beat my man on every single play. And I mean, you look at the PFFs and things of that nature, and you see that Walter Nolan is the second highest graded run stopper in the nation. And it's like, yeah, look, he could stop the run. He shows great upside as a pass rusher. He should be at the top of these boards. Then you realize what PFF grade their boards off, and this fact that as long as you beat your man, you good. But I mean, like I said a second ago, you beat your man, you run yourself out of position. What the hell are we doing? That you're taking yourself out of play, but that's not stuff that's getting taken into account there. So I do think he can make improvements in terms of him as a run defender. Now, him the pass rusher, that's where he shows the flashes. I was having a conversation on one of the Boom or Bust episodes, and I believe it was Tyler Fortis who basically told me he was very high on Walter to start the process, and then a lot of people told him, "Well, you should go back and watch." And when he went back and watched, he noticed, well, he was pretty bad at taking on double teams, and he just thought that, I mean, maybe is how he being utilized. Nah, he just wasn't good at it. There are a lot of things with Nolan that are up and down in the process. There's a lot to love about him. I think, as I say, a lot of prospects. Landing spot to be important. Philadelphia is such an interesting one because it allowed him the freedom to be himself. I do think he'll have to learn some more structure, but it allowed him some freedom.
He would be the second Walter first name to be on the Eagles. Walter Thurman the third. Come on, love. Come on.
All right. Next up here.
Well, I mean, a little offshoot. I mean, I think I'd be excited to see him next to Jalen Carter. I think that would help solve a lot of his issues as well. I just don't think you have to do as much if you're playing next to Jalen Carter, and maybe that would help. Who the hell was named Walter in the 90s? That was just like really good stuff. Walter Clayton the third, baby. I mean, what went on? Why are there so many Walters? Because it's not a. I mean, you hear Walter Payton Man of the Year award. I mean, that's the only time of the year you hear Walter.
We gonna have a full episode where we go through the names of players, a Name-A-Lytics episode. But the name Walter, the aura of it isn't there.
No, it is. It is. No, because if you are
now as a D lineman, that's a really fire D lineman name.
It doesn't matter who you are. Walter does not fit.
No, as a D tackle, if your name, if it doesn't matter, if your name is Walter and you are playing football or basketball at that level, it means you're cold. Because it means that you got made fun of throughout elementary school and you never quit because you were damn good, or people didn't make fun of you.
Hey, they on the sideline like you was getting buckets dropped on you by a dog named Walter.
He's so damn cold. Sometimes I forget his name is Walter. I'm telling you, you got to be damn good if your name is Walter. Name-A-Lytics. That is the stuff that we need for the pod.
You know what?
These are deep thoughts.
You gotta save this. You gotta save this for the Name-A-Lytics episode.
I got it, man. I got it. Just to give y'all.
That was good stuff.
We're doing Name-A-Lytics next Thursday.
All right. Let's get through these D tackles because I am falling asleep.
All right. TJ Saunders out of South Carolina, one of my personal favorites players in this class. 6'4", 290. I think if you're looking for a Milton Williams replacement in terms of a pass rusher, this is the guy. I think he has some of that, positional versatility as he can kick outside, not necessarily play edge, but kind of a little bit more like what Milton Williams did at times. I think he's a high energy player, really twitchy, active as a pass rusher. His athleticism really shines in terms of his first step explosiveness. Again, he's a really explosive pass rusher. There's a ton of counters, and his speed to power ability it's clearly there. I think his run defense, like me and you talked about Q a couple months ago, is clearly still a work in progress. At times he kind of struggles to hold his ground against double teams, and sometimes he gets lost in a shuffle. But his ability as a pass rusher, that's really the selling point with him.
Yeah, man. TJ, he was a fun watch because he was one of those defensive linemen who he just doesn't give a damn as a pass rusher, man. And you need some of those. I mean, we spend all these time watching the big guys talking about being able to stop the run and things of that nature. And I mean, he offers a little bit in that department. I think he should offer some improvement there. But in him as a pass rusher, there aren't many defensive linemen in this class that offer the juice that TJ Sanders offers as a pass rusher. Mm-hmm. Me and Pierre continue to hop on, and maybe it's because we looking for the quote unquote Milton Williams replacement, but we keep coming back to the Milton Williams name as a guy who he's very reminiscent of when we watch him, and just a guy who he had all the pass rush plans in the world coming into the next level. Kind of had some nuanced things that he cleaned up, specifically in the upper body. But if and when he gets that cleaned up, he'll be a handful for offensive linemen, man.
When do you think in the draft he would go?
Now, I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie to you, brother. Me personally, depending on how the board falls, I'd do it at 32.
I wouldn't necessarily. I mean, we had this conversation before. I mean, there are a few guys that I personally have ahead of him that I'd take ahead of him. I mean, who knows what the board or what life projects for Derek Harmon? I'd take Derek Harmon over him. I mean,
okay, wait. Give me your Derek Harmon rundown because I don't know how I feel about him.
Derek Harmon is, hold on, let me pull up this specific scouting report, but it's a little bit of the same light as TJ Sanders. TJ might be a little, say that again. Yeah, Oregon. There you go. See, my boy knows something. My boy knows something. But here we go. So with Derek is a disruptive presence first and foremost, man. He first, like you talk about with TJ, the first step explosiveness is probably the first thing that flashes off the screen. Now, he is, when you want to talk about violence and how a player utilizes their hands, that is a violent hand user in terms of how he makes his presence felt against these offensive linemen, how he can maximize his spacing, for lack of a better term. He's rarely out leveraged as a defensive lineman, which it comes in handy both in the run, against the run and the pass. Now, I'd love for him to. He's a bit of the. If I had to make a joke about it, he's the Shamar Stewart of defensive tackles. You do everything right, you just don't finish the job. Get so close to finishing, so he's one of those. You watch the football games and you see the defensive tackle chasing after the quarterback, and the quarterback threw it away, but you sitting there like, man, if that was an edge and not a tackle, that probably would have been a sack, buddy. It's probably that guy.
It's kind of like you kind of hear the debate between pressures versus sacks. Mm-hmm. That's why for me, that's why it's kind of been, I'm not gonna say difficult, but it's kind of difficult for me to make something of him. I don't know how I feel about him.
I also read that he struggles with tackling. Does that fall into the not finishing plays, or is it more so he's just a step too slow?
Yeah, that also falls into the not finishing plays thing, where he's the kind of guy who, I don't want to necessarily call him an arm tackler, but that's kind of what you see on tape, where he's trying to bring you down and things of that nature. And he's often the first guy there for Army. But I mean, when you're watching this and you're evaluating a singular player, it's like, I would like to see you make this tackle instead of be the rally the troops guy.
Right, and it's frustrating because he's so violent with his hands. Just translate it.
That's how you say,
use that anger, right, Pierre?
Yeah. When you watch him, it's clear that the power is there, but like you said, he just doesn't finish, right? He's an inconsistent finisher, right? Like,
I just realized you wanted to make James Pierce. You were just like, be the Hulk. You know when he's like, "Hey Hulk, smash." He's like, "I'm always angry." That's basically what you want the Eagles to do for.
yeah, use that anger, channel that anger on the football field, brother.
I don't think that's how it works, buddy. I don't think it's very good idea to have. You already got Jalen Carter just attracting 15-yard penalties for no reason. You
Now,
need.
now Pierre has me thinking. I mean, an all crash out team. We lost CJ.
Oh, buddy. Y'all fellas need help.
Hashtag noticing. Hashtag
Y'all
the
fellas
noticing.
need help.
The
I
real
can't
mean
help you.
green, the real mean green defense.
Bro, I watched this YouTube video about the Broad Street Bullies, like the hockey team, and in the game they played against the Russians. They just they just beat the shit out of the Russians the entire game. Why not us? Why don't we just do that? Just beat the shit out of every team you play. You know?
The
Then they don't want
league
to play.
will not allow it. They are already trying to ban the tush push. They will ban the Philadelphia Eagles.
You know what? I could live with that. Like if we make the league ban us, I would. That'd be pretty awesome, man. That'd be pretty awesome.
Like we gotta find a new team.
This team is just too crash out, man. We can't play with them. The teams are refusing to play the Eagles. Oh man!
But you got anything else you want to touch on defensive tackles, Q?
Defensive tackles.
Tyleek Williams, I remember that was a name you brought up.
Yeah, I
That's
think
the
that they
Ohio
brought him in for a visit. That's interesting to say the least. Kind of like we talked about earlier. I think it'd be redundant. He's basically Jordan Davis.
That's what I was about to say. Isn't he just like a really big dude who's like,
he's
athletic, but he's trying to figure out the pass rush thing, right?
Yeah, there you go. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you ask me, I mean, hell, we're almost 5 years in with Jordan Davis. But if you ask me who I believed in more to figure out the pass rush, Jordan Davis or Tyleek Williams, I'd pick Jordan Davis.
That's coming from an Ohio State fan too.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Tyleek can offer some juice.
Now he's backtracking.
I'm not backtracking.
I didn't mean all that, bro.
You know, I hate making rookie sound bad or prospect sound bad. I'm not backtracking because it'd still be Jordan Davis that I picked. But I don't want to act like he's just horrific because that makes him sound like he's just a horrific pass rusher.
We got my boy Big Dets too. We both got fat boys coming into the draft. Let's go, man. Let's go.
Yeah.
He's big as hell. This has some big boys in the draft. Pegasus too. He is quite a large human being. That's a lot of meat.
Yeah, man. I was about to say. I know you seen the offensive rankings, man. I sent them over. I was like, Parth gonna be pressed that Brandon on the scouting board. I mean, on the scouting board.
Listen,
who's the is he North Carolina? Frankie? Is it Frankie or what's the dude's name? Lumpkin Jr.
Willie.
Yeah, Willie
Lampkin.
Yeah. Isn't he that's guard that played?
Isn't that who started
He's
Georgia?
Like 5'10".
Yeah.
That is who started. We saw where he landed here. We saw where Lumpkin landed. Remember in Savannah, bro. Keep up,
buddy.
dog. We saw history.
Oh yeah.
That's why he said Lumpkin. Well, I'm teaching you history, bro. It's the guy who discovered Georgia, man. Come on.
They're talking about their times of meeting without Q. Me, Squidward.
Hey, how many times have you
Hey,
here?
man.
How many times
And every time Pierre send the Squidward meme.
with Patrick and SpongeBob outside having fun, looking in from the window. Sorry, bro. I keep interrupting you. Go on, man.
Nah, man, but Willie Lampkin, hell, friend of the pod, JP, thinks that he has a future as a fullback, man. Just bring him in. Kid has a wrestling background.
Oh, that is who we mentioned. I remember that. That. Yeah.
He has a wrestling background. He's rarely out leveraged. He's just not big enough to succeed at the next level. But go ahead, bring him in. Put him in the Ben Van Summer role. I'm with it. Do it.
But we spoke about it. We didn't think they would take somebody, right? Because they re-signed Ben. I feel like we talked about this.
Man,
right?
I don't care. What was it? 1 year deal that they gave him?
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. Why not? Why not? And I mean, worst case, you can go play D line too. See what happens, right? Like he can be
5'10" D
guard now.
lineman is crazy.
A 5'10" O lineman is crazy. But
I
I
agree.
mean, hell, I'm imploring you. We joking. Go watch that tape. You're gonna be sitting there like, how does he do this?
No, I will. I will definitely
But
watch that.
I think that's going to do it for this episode. We touched on the edge rushers and defensive tackles that make sense for the Birds in this class. Next episode, we're going to touch on the offensive linemen because we didn't get to them. And we're going to do a name-alytics segment for sure. We are making that happen. We're going to be live on first night of the draft and day 2. Potentially day 3, we're still debating that, but we'll probably be. I'm thinking day 1 will be live at about 7:45, 7:40ish. We're gonna put out more information about that. We're looking into having some guests on too on day 1. But yeah, I think that's gonna do it for this episode. If you're
Sorry, I'm
tapped in,
making that face. My brain was just rolling for a second. I think I'm gonna try to talk the guys into doing just a full 32 pick for a whole first round mock, but names. Who's the
Interesting.
best name in the entire class?
Oh, I would love to hear people's thoughts on my views on Walters.
Oh
I
my
think, I
gosh.
think I'm on. I think I'm on to something there. You're so damn good that they don't make fun of you for your name, so you stick around. There's something there.
If
but
Travis
thank you.
Hunter
If
was
you're
a defensive end, he'd be number one. A defensive end with the last name Hunter, cold.
Danielle
Yeah.
Hunter,
Cold. You see, he didn't even need college production. It was so cold.
Jilix Hunter,
Cold.
Daniil Hunter. Oh no, that's what you just said, right?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Boo.
We're
Get
missing,
this guy out of here.
bro. I told you, I'm tired, man. It is 10 p.m. Still got to eat. It's a Friday. No, we got one comment. Let's see. Devin Smith, let's go. We got the appearance. Shout out Devin, man. Thank you,
Shout out
man.
my brother.
Shout out.
What's up?
But, if you're
What's up, Ramley?
if you're tapped into the stream, appreciate you for tapping in. We're gonna release this as a pod tomorrow, so if you're listening after the stream on whichever podcast streaming platform you're listening on, be sure to leave us a like and review. We're gonna be back next week. We're also gonna tap in with Q on the Boomer Bust pod. By the way, if you have not listened to those episodes, please go back and give those a listen. Amazing draft coverage and content, like super really detailed conversations about the draft and the draft process and prospects and everything like that.
You know what we can do is the tweet that we send out for the pod for today. We'll put all of
Boomer Bust.
the draft ones right underneath that. We'll put it in a thread. That way people can click it. I think one got released today too, right? So
Yeah.
make sure y'all tap in.
Yeah. But again, appreciate you for tapping in. That's gonna do it for this episode. Go Birds, everybody.
Go Birds.
That's not a bird, Parth. Go Birds.